Picture this. A storm brewing, not just, outside, but inside a person. Emotions so intense they feel like they're about to burst.
Hmm.
That's the world we're stepping into today. The inner turmoil of Vincent van Gogh during his time in Etten. That's April to December 1881.
Right. This period in Etten it's really where we see the foundation starting to solidify for the Van Gogh
Yeah.
we kind of recognize later. He's grappling with, well, fundamental questions about his art and
Sure.
navigating some deeply challenging personal stuff.
Exactly. And to understand this crucial phase, we've gone deep into a really rich source. Excerpts from Van Gogh's letters to his brother Theo, written during these very months.
Yeah.
And these aren't like carefully crafted statements for the public. No, they're raw, unfiltered glimpses into his artistic evolution and his very personal struggles. We're talking heartbreak, family conflict, all that intense human experience.
And what makes these letters so powerful is just their immediacy. We're getting a direct line into Van Gogh's thinking, his feeling, as these events were actually unfolding. It's not just art history looking back, it's history happening right there on the page.
Right. And that's where you, listening, really benefit. We've sifted through these intimate writings to bring you the key insights, sort of a shortcut to understanding this really formative period. You'll
Hmm.
see those aha moments where his emotional experiences directly influenced, well, what he chose to paint and even how he approached his technique. Okay, so Van Gogh returns to his parents' home in Etten, April 1881. Theo, always the supportive brother, sends him art supplies. What was his main focus artistically at that point?
Initially, his primary focus was really on figure studies. He had his long-standing interest in depicting people, especially people from the working classes. He saw that as a crucial foundation for his artistic development.
But it wasn't exactly a peaceful homecoming, was it?
No, not at all.
We know there was this pretty significant conflict with his father that eventually led to him being asked to leave something about refusing to go to church at Christmas. That seems like a pretty fundamental clash.
It absolutely was. That refusal, it really highlights a growing divide between Van Gogh's own beliefs and the more, let's say, traditional religious views of his family,
Yeah.
especially his father, who was a minister.
Right, of course.
And this friction, it was just a constant source of tension in his life.
Hmm.
And it undoubtedly impacted his emotional state during this time in Etten.
And it really seems like he was craving connection with the art world then. He specifically sought out support from other artists, Anton Mauve and Théophile de Bock. Mauve especially seems like such a key figure.
Mauve was definitely pivotal.
Uh-huh.
He was a leading artist in the Hague School, which was known for its realistic, often quite somber depictions of Dutch rural life. That style initially really resonated with Van Gogh's own interests. And the fact that Mauve was also a relative by marriage, that just amplified Van Gogh's desire for his approval, his guidance. De Bock may be less famous now, but he was also respected, admired Corot, another artist Van Gogh really looked up to for his naturalistic landscapes.
Okay, so he's back in Etten trying to hone his skills, figure drawing, but he's dealing with these family tensions, looking for validation from the art community. Now, the letters really start to give us this window into his artistic breakthroughs. Letter 150 from around September 1881 talks about a significant change in his drawings. What's the key takeaway here?
The key takeaway is that Van Gogh himself sees this distinct leap forward in his ability. He clearly says, there's a change in his approach, a marked improvement in the drawings. He credits Mauve's influence, encouraging him to work directly from live models again,
Ah, okay.
which he saw as essential, really, for capturing the true essence of the human form. He even mentions specific models, like Pete Kaufman, a laborer. It shows his continued focus on depicting the working class.
And it sounds like he was also really diligently studying and copying Bargues exercises au fusain, those charcoal drawing exercises. What was it about those specific exercises that was so, well, transformative for him?
Well, those exercises gave him a structured, methodical approach to understanding form and proportion. Van Gogh specifically mentions learning to measure accurately and to see the broad outlines of the figure. Fundamental skills, right?
Yeah.
Skills he previously found incredibly challenging. So this disciplined approach gave him a new sense of control and, importantly, a real boost in his confidence. It wasn't just technical skill. It instilled this discipline of observation that became a hallmark later on.
Right. The letter then lists this whole series of figure studies he did. A man with a spade, like 5 times, sewers, a girl with a broom, a woman peeling potatoes, an old peasant by the fire. It really paints a picture of just intense dedication.
It really does.
And then there's that quote. Once a few sheep have crossed the bridge, the whole flock follows. What's he trying to say with that?
It's such a powerful metaphor for his artistic intentions.
Yeah.
He's basically saying that this initial breakthrough in figure drawing, these first successful studies, they're like the led sheep.
Okay.
Once he's achieved this level of skill with a few subjects, it opens the way for him to depict all aspects of rural life. Diggers, sowers, farmers, with that same confidence and skill. He says he's no longer feeling helpless before nature, which, as we discussed, is a huge shift.
A massive shift.
Yeah, it's like he's found his artistic voice, a clear direction for his work.
It sounds like he's not just found his subject matter, but also this renewed sense of purpose. He also mentions experimenting with new materials, kind of crayon, brush and stumps, sepia, India ink, even a touch of color sometimes. How did exploring different media contribute to the change?
Well, experimenting with materials let him explore a wider range of lines, tones, textures. Conte crayon, for instance, feels different, looks different from charcoal. Using brush and ink let him explore washes, bolder lines.
Mm.
So this material exploration went hand in hand with his developing techniques.
Yeah.
It helped him get that distinct quality he was seeing in the new drawings. And the fact he notes the figure sizes were similar to the barg exercises suggests he was deliberately continuing those lessons.
And it's fascinating that he believes this intense focus on figure drawing will actually benefit his landscape work later, not detract from it. He even includes little sketches in the letter to show what he means.
Yes, his thinking is quite insightful there. He figures that a strong understanding of form, of structure, which he's getting from figure drawing, will translate into more powerful, compelling landscapes by truly understanding the underlying structure, even the living being of a tree, as he puts it later.
Yeah, I remember that.
He believes he can capture the essence of the whole environment more effectively.
He also touches on the practical realities paying models, hoping to sell his work to cover costs. He sounds surprisingly confident that mastering figure drawing is a way to actually earn a living.
Yeah, there's a newfound confidence there.
And then he mentions writing to Rapar, looking forward to Mauve's visit. It really feels like he's on the verge of a significant new chapter.
Absolutely. This letter 150, it really marks a turning point.
Mm.
He's showing this new confidence, a clear direction, all fueled by dedicated study and the start of that crucial mentorship with Mauve.
Mm.
The enclosed sketches, even though he admits they're not perfect, offer a glimpse into themes that would keep captivating him. His eagerness to draw a woman with a seed basket connects right back to an earlier sketch he showed Theo, so there's consistency.
Right.
And his specific request for Ingres paper, that specific kind, good for texture, fine lines, tonal variations, it just underscores his growing attention to the technical side of things.
Moving on to letter 152. From October 1881, we see him responding to Theo's positive feedback and comments from the art dealer Mr. Tersteeg. That encouragement clearly meant a lot to him.
Oh, absolutely. Validation from people whose judgment he respected, like Theo and Tersteeg, that would have been crucial reinforcement. It fueled his determination to keep pushing forward.
He talks about the initial resistance from nature that artists face, but how that opposition actually becomes motivation. Then he says something really profound. At heart, nature and the honest draftsman are as one. What's the core idea there?
The core idea is about this fundamental connection, this harmony between an artist who approaches nature with sincerity and nature itself. He believes the initial struggle to capture nature's essence is just part of truly understanding it.
Okay.
It's a belief that with persistent, honest effort, the artist and nature will ultimately, be in sync.
He even uses Shakespeare's Taming the Shrew as an analogy for this artistic struggle, emphasizing the importance of serrer de près vaut mieux que lâcher, keeping close is better than letting go in drawing.
Exactly. That highlights his growing conviction in focused, persistent effort. Don't be discouraged by difficulties. Engage with them more intensely. Refuse to give up.
He repeats his belief in figure drawing and how it strengthens his landscape work indirectly. That image he uses, drawing a pollard willow as a living being, and then the surroundings just naturally follow. It's incredibly evocative. What's he getting at?
He's talking about a holistic approach, really. He believes that by focusing deeply on the life force within one element, like that willow tree, understanding its structure, its character,
Yeah.
he can then more authentically capture the essence of the whole landscape around it. It's seeing the interconnectedness of everything in nature.
This letter also mentions his first tries with watercolor and sepia, though he admits they weren't quite working yet. He talks about Mauve's trip to Drenthe, their plans to meet up. He also mentions visiting the Fabricius Museum in Rotterdam and being glad Theo got to see Mesdag drawing. It sounds like he's actively seeking out and learning from other artists.
Absolutely. He's immersing himself, observing different techniques, drawing inspiration from old masters and contemporary artists. His admiration for Mrs. Mesdag's drawing of yellow roses on moss. It shows his appreciation for delicate skill, keen observation.
Then there's this whole bit where he discusses the artist de Bach and his potential. Van Gogh seems to have had a very direct chat with him about how crucial figure drawing is, even for landscape artists, referencing Millet and Corot as examples.
Yeah, this really underscores Van Gogh's strong conviction about figure drawing being foundational for any artist, regardless of subject.
Right.
He saw it as providing the essential understanding of form, anatomy, movement that informs everything else. And using Millet and Corot, masters known for powerful figures in landscapes, just bolsters his argument.
The anecdote he shares about Destray's snarky remark about the panorama painting and de Bach's witty comeback is quite revealing, too. What does that tell us about Van Gogh's own values?
It shows his respect for de Bach's, down-to-earth, practical approach to art, contrasting it with what he saw as Destray's arrogance, maybe a detachment from the hard work of making art. He seems to align de Bach's sensible response with how Theo deals with established figures, suggesting a shared value of just getting on with the work, not worrying about superficial opinions. And Mauve's quote, "Painting is drawing as well," just nails it.
Yeah, sums it up.
Strong drawing is the foundation of good painting, not separate skills.
Now, alongside all this intense artistic development, there's this incredibly powerful emotional undercurrent. His unrequited love for his widowed cousin Kivas. This starts in the summer of 1881, and the letters. They give a very raw, intimate look at his feelings.
Oh, this is a truly pivotal part of this period. His emotional life was just so deeply intertwined with his art. And his intense feelings for Key became a major driving force, even if it was a painful one. His earlier positive impression of Key's family life, back in '77, probably contributed to this idealized image he had of her, which he then projected on her after she was widowed.
He writes to Theo with such raw emotion. It is just as if Kivas were the closest person to me and I the closest person to Kivas. And then comes that blunt, devastating rejection. Never, no, never. Wow. That must have been an incredible blow.
It was deeply painful, yes.
Yeah.
And so definitive. The starkness of her words clearly wounded him profoundly. But his reaction is also very telling, isn't it?
How so?
Instead of accepting defeat, he chooses to persist. It reveals this passionate, maybe, somewhat stubborn side of his nature. Beyond the personal pain, you have to wonder if this kind of definitive rejection, this intensity, played a role in the raw emotion we see later in his art.
That's an interesting thought, how these experiences fueled his expression, even indirectly. He mentions the petite misère de la vie humaine, the little miseries he endured because of this pursuit, yet he says he's glad he didn't just resign himself. There's a sense of him learning, growing through this hardship.
Right.
And that quote, "We pick up the scent as we wander about, not as we sit idly by," seems to apply to both his love life and his art.
Absolutely. It underscores his active engagement with life, emotionally and artistically. He believes in learning, through doing, through experience, even if it involves pain or uncertainty, rather than just passively accepting things.
He held off telling Theo about it because he wasn't sure where he stood with Key, but eventually he did confide in family. Uncle Sent's unexpected encouragement, that almost playful comment about Key's "never no never Mills," it's a brief moment of lightness in all the drama.
It is. Uncle Sent's reaction gives a slightly different angle within the family. Acknowledging Vincent's feelings with a bit of humor, maybe a hint of understanding, must have been a welcome contrast to the general disapproval.
But then there's Uncle Straker's worry about severing family ties. Van Gogh's response about renewing ties where they need mending shows he wants reconciliation, but he's also sticking to his guns about his feelings. He even says his artwork actually improved after he met Key.
That's a fascinating link. It does suggest the intensity of his emotions, even though they caused him pain, acted as a powerful catalyst for his creative energy. It's a theme we see often with artists, how personal struggles fuel profound output.
He paints this picture of a really tough situation. Key's firm rejection, the older generation's disapproval. He suspects they're trying to avoid a scandal until after some family celebration in December, and he's afraid of being ostracized.
Yeah.
His determination to stay in touch with Key, still hoping she might change her mind, seems almost defiant against everyone.
It does. His persistent hope against such strong opposition reveals this deep-seated conviction in his feelings, and his observation that the older generation might only change their minds if he gets financially successful. That adds this layer of social economic reality to his personal struggle.
And then that incredibly poignant quote, "To go on loving her, until in the end she loves me too. Plus elle disparaît, plus elle apparaît. To continue loving her until she loves me in return, the more she disappears, the more she appears. It just perfectly captures that obsessive nature of unrequited love.
It really does.
He even turns the question to Theo, asks if he's in love, talks about 3 stages of love, and finds the strange kind of satisfaction in the never, no, never. It's such an intense personal outpouring.
It is. He's clearly processing this through his close bond with Theo, seeking understanding, maybe a sense of shared experience, even validation. His almost paradoxical reaction to the rejection could be seen as a kind of romantic idealism, finding nobility in the struggle itself.
He mentions visits from Ripard, Mauve's expected visit, and notes an increase in brushwork in his drawings, focusing more indoors because of the cold. It seems even amidst all this turmoil, his art is still central.
Definitely.
And then he advises Theo, tells him not to give up if he ever faces a never, no, never. It's like he's drawing lessons from his own pain to share.
Precisely. Reflecting on his own experience and offering guidance based on his own determination. And the shift to indoor figure drawing shows how practical things like the weather also steered his practice.
The conflict with his parents really escalates, though, doesn't it?
Dramatically, yes.
They try to make him promise to stop communicating about Key. He refuses. Accusations fly indelicate, inopportune, severing family ties. He even tries giving them the silent treatment to show what severed ties would really be like, which, as you said, backfires spectacularly.
It paints such a vivid picture of intense family conflict. His parents just couldn't understand or validate his deep feelings, leading to these extreme measures on both sides. His silent treatment, maybe intended to make a point about emotional distance, just provoked his father's anger even more.
His father's reaction is strong, even cursing him, suggesting he move away. Vincent tries to downplay the moving away comment, but the tension is just palpable. He's asserting his right to protest unfair accusations, telling his parents straight up he thinks they're wrong, hard-hearted, and narrow-minded about his love for Key.
This is a critical moment. He's standing firm against family disapproval, prioritizing his own emotional truth, his integrity, even if it costs him family harmony. His inability to suppress his outrage just underscores how deep his feelings ran, how profoundly misunderstood he felt.
Despite all this strife, he still repeats his deep love for Key, his feeling of connection, even with the never know ever. He mentions recent drawings, a peasant boy lighting a fire, an old man with twigs, and makes a poignant observation. He sees a harshness in his drawings, suggesting Key's influence might be needed to soften them.
That's insightful.
He then dismisses his father's curse and makes that big decision not to return to Etten, planning instead to get direct guidance from Mauve in The Hague.
That decision to leave Etten is a major turning point. The deep rift with his parents, combined with his unwavering commitment to his art, pushes him towards Mauve's mentorship. His thought about Key softening his work reveals just how profound and complex her impact was, even in rejection.
And then we hear about that incredibly fraught, unannounced visit to Key's father's house in Amsterdam. It sounds like pure desperation, fueled by his overwrought state. This whole intense affair seems to have catalyzed a shift in his worldview, contributing to the end of his religious faith, judging by his later critical remarks about clergy.
That impulsive Amsterdam visit really underscores the depth of his turmoil, his desperation to connect with Key somehow. It's a stark illustration of how consumed he was. And the disillusionment with the clergy, his father, Key's father, reflects this broader questioning of authority and tradition that often happens during intense personal struggles.
Finally, we get to letter 164, around December 1881. He describes arriving at Mauve's studio in The Hague. He talks about his emotional state and the practical, friendly help and encouragement from Mauve, even when Mauve was critical. That constructive feedback seems exactly what he needed.
Yes, the contrast with his family is striking. Mauve offers concrete guidance, genuine support for his art, which Van Gogh clearly valued deeply. The distinction he makes between constructive criticism and criticism just for its own sake highlights his hunger for real mentorship, a path forward.
He mentions painted studies, watercolors he did with Mauve. He knows they aren't masterpieces, but they show progress. He feels he's at the beginning of doing something serious. Just having paint and brush again seems to re-energize him after all that emotional chaos.
That sense of a fresh start is really significant. After the upheaval in Etten, Mauve provides a new focus, a clear direction for his artistic energy. The tangible act of painting, experimenting with color, probably felt liberating, offered a renewed sense of purpose, of hope.
Mauve gives specific advice: don't sit too close to the model, need a bigger studio. Van Gogh then discusses looking for a room or shed, comparing costs to a workman's cottage. He's clearly thinking practically about the challenges.
These details give a glimpse into the practical realities. Finding affordable workspace, managing limited money, constant concerns. Comparing costs to a workman's cottage really shows how tight his budget was.
He believes he can find models elsewhere in Brabant, beyond Etten. And while he still likes Brabant, he notes a growing attraction to different figure types, mentioning people in Scheveningen suggests his vision is broadening.
Yeah, his appreciation for diverse human forms in places like Scheveningen indicates a desire to expand his horizons, explore subjects beyond the Brant peasants he'd been focused on.
He promises Mauve he'll find a good studio, use better paint and paper. He repeats how good and cost-effective engrais paper is, even asks Theo for more, specifying the color. His attention to materials is getting sharper.
It shows his growing commitment to improving his practice, understanding how materials impact the final work. That specific color request for the engrais paper underscores his developing sensitivity to tonal nuances.
He emphasizes how crucial tone and color are, credits Mauve with teaching him how to really see them. He also expresses excitement about Mauve's insights into how an artist can actually earn a living, contrasting it with his own previous false position, his false unsustainable situation. Sounds like a real turning point professionally.
It is a significant shift. Mauve's guidance offers a more realistic, hopeful path towards becoming a professional, financially independent artist, a stark contrast to the uncertainty and reliance he'd known before.
He wishes Theo could see the two watercolors he brought back, admits their flaws but notes their freshness, brightness, needs his earlier drawings for comparison, wanting to track his progress. Mauve even predicts that if he works hard for a few more months and comes back in March, he'll be making sellable drawings regularly. That must have been incredibly encouraging.
Receiving that kind of positive feedback, a tangible prediction of success from someone like Mauve, must have been a huge boost to his morale. His belief in his potential gave him a concrete goal.
He acknowledges his difficult financial spot, but notes his father is willing to cover essentials and reacted positively to Mauve's feedback and the new studies. Still, Van Gogh is clearly uncomfortable being dependent on his father.
Yeah, that highlights that recurring tension, the strong desire for independence clashing with the reality of his finances. Grateful for support, probably, but it clearly weighed on his sense of self-reliance.
He then explains the different affection he feels for Theo and Mauve versus his parents, how he feels stifled by his parents' thinking. Describes a fundamental disconnect in communication, differing views on religion, morality. That anecdote about his parents interpreting Goethe's Faust as just the consequence of an indelicate love is almost darkly funny in its simplicity.
It really underscores the huge differences in their worldviews. Van Gogh's deep engagement with complex ideas contrasts sharply with his parents' more literal, moralistic interpretations, especially through that religious lens.
He comes back to Kibos, saying morality brings him back to her complex thought. He recounts the ill-fated Amsterdam trip, the awkward dinner at her father's house. The muddy plate feels symbolic, doesn't it?
Definitely symbolic of his exclusion.
He keeps asking about Key, only to be told she left when she heard he arrived. He's left confused about her coldness.
That whole Amsterdam episode is a powerful illustration of the deep emotional chasm between him and Key's family. The missing plate, his confusion about Key's reaction. It reflects his deep emotional investment and his struggle to understand her perspective.
Then comes the formal reading of the very reverend and most learned letter asking him to stop all correspondence. His relatively calm reaction, his continued questions, it appressa, and after that, feels like quiet defiance. He mentions Anne M's Jesuitical remarks, a heated discussion with JPS, but despite the differences, he's offered a place to stay, declines, chooses a hotel thanks to unexpected kindness from uncles and aunts.
His somewhat detached reaction to the letter could indicate emotional exhaustion, maybe resignation, but his continued focus on Key highlights the persistence of his feelings. That unexpected kindness from other relatives is a small glimmer of human connection amidst the conflict.
He has more talks with JPS, but still can't consider it over and done with. He actually finds his impression of the professor improved, even wishes the professor could experience love. His reading of Michelet's La Femme, La Religion et le Prêtre shows his preference for real-world experience over abstract religion.
Yeah.
Those 3 miserable days in Amsterdam lead to a resolution. He won't succumb to melancholy or be browbeaten.
His wish for the professor suggests a belief that profound human emotions are key to understanding and empathy. Engaging with Michelet reflects his intellectual curiosity, searching for meaning outside traditional religion, and his resolution shows a conscious effort to stay resilient.
His final chat with JPS is telling. He defines his feelings for Key as being for a real woman, not some angel or demon. JPS leaves for church, and Van Gogh feels hardened by such places. He refuses to be browbeaten despite feeling drained, embracing realism and expressing his feelings openly.
That exchange really encapsulates his rejection of simplistic, judgmental views of women, embracing a more grounded human understanding of love. His negative reaction to the church environment reinforces his grown disillusionment with organized religion, its perceived lack of empathy.
He then has a nice time visiting his sister Wilhelmine in Harlem before finally getting back to Mauve's studio in The Hague. Asks to stay longer for more focused instruction. Mauve gives positive feedback on his studies. They start still life exercises. But despite this positive art engagement, he still feels chilled to the marrow by the church and Key's family experiences. The impact lingers.
That stark contrast, positive art interaction with Mauve versus the persistent emotional coldness, underscores the profound impact of his personal struggles. It shows that while he was actively pursuing his art, the emotional wounds were still very much present.
He talks about his fundamental need for love, companionship, and grapples with this internal conflict wanting another woman while still loving Key. Questions why logic should always rule his emotions, states his deep need for a woman to avoid emotional and creative stagnation.
This internal struggle reveals the complexity of his emotional landscape. He acknowledges the seeming contradiction, but ultimately recognizes his fundamental human need for connection, intimacy, as vital for both his personal well-being and his creativity.
He describes meeting a woman not young, not conventionally beautiful, who reminds him of figures by Chardin or Stan, an ouvrière, a working woman with a hard life, and then shares that incredible quote, Toute femme à tout âge, si elle aime et si elle est bonne, peut donner à l'homme non l'infini du moment, mais le moment de l'infini. Every woman at any age, if she loves and if she is good, can give a man not the infinite of the moment, but the moment of the infinite. Such a powerful statement.
It is truly beautiful, insightful, about the potential for profound connection, meaning in relationships, regardless of societal expectations or conventional beauty, speaks to his deep empathy for those who've faced hardship, his ability to see beauty in the everyday.
He reflects on past feelings for women condemned by the clergy, says he doesn't share that condemnation, asserts his need for love was lifelong, even before Key, explains his deeper sympathy for women with difficult lives, seeing them as sisters, and contrasts this with his feelings for Key, who he now sees as trapped by resignation, religious dogma.
This reveals a core part of his values: compassion for the marginalized, rejection of judgmental doctrines. His contrasting views on Key highlight his concern about her perceived emotional and intellectual confinement.
He shares his more atheistic views about the clergy's God, yet affirms belief in a wondrous, indefinable something he equates with God, connected to love and life. Explains pursuing this other woman is driven by a need for affection, mental well-being, not rejecting his feelings for Key.
This articulation of his personal spirituality shows a clear move from traditional religion towards a personal experiential understanding of the divine rooted in love, connection, life's vitality. His explanation for seeking another connection emphasizes his immediate emotional needs while still acknowledging the complexity of his feelings for Key.
He reassures Theo he's not melancholy, but focused on his art. Eager for the 3 months before returning to Mauve to pass, but knows the time could be beneficial. Promises to consult Mauve before renting a studio, keep his father out of artistic affairs.
Indicates a renewed purpose, commitment to his art, plus a growing understanding of needing professional guidance and setting healthy boundaries.
He reflects on Key clinging to the past as fatal, states his intent to return to The Hague and Amsterdam in March, determined not to get melancholic. Even addresses potential envy from Theo, suggesting the connection he seeks is available to everyone. Acknowledges his own shortcomings, difficulty of self-assessment, quoting Jules Breton, Il y a du bon tout mouvement, there is good in every movement.
The self-awareness, combined with his openness to learning growth, is characteristic of his relentless pursuit of understanding in art and life. The Breton quote reinforces his belief in action, experience, forward momentum.
The letter ends with some amusing anecdotes about Mauve mimicking clergymen, a sermon about Peter's boat, Father Bernhard unable to cast out a sinner, then asks Theo to write soon. It's a remarkably detailed, revealing letter. So much insight into this crucial period.
Indeed. A comprehensive look at his artistic evolution, the significant emotional turmoil, and the development of his personal philosophy and spiritual views during this pivotal time.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Van Gogh's letters from Etten, what are the key takeaways that really stand out for you?
Well, the main threads woven through this time are Van Gogh's intense dedication to honing his skills,
Hmm.
particularly figure drawing under Mauve's guidance, and then that profound emotional upheaval from his unrequited love for Kivas and the resulting family conflicts.
Right.
These experiences, both the artistic breakthroughs and the personal heartaches, were undeniably powerful catalysts. They shaped his artistic vision, his development. We see how his relentless pursuit of skill, even through pain and rejection, laid the groundwork for his unique vision later on.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that our personal experiences, the good and the bad, can profoundly influence how we express ourselves creatively. And Van Gogh's struggle navigating his deep desires against external pressures, his love for Key versus his family, that's a very human, relatable experience.
Absolutely. His letters give this raw, honest account of that internal and external conflict, revealing the complex, often intertwined relationship between his emotional life and his artistic journey.
So here's something for you to consider. How do your own emotional landscapes, your joys, your heartaches, how do they shape your creative pursuits or maybe just your understanding of the world around you?
Hmm.
Is there a never no never in your own life that might be unknowingly guiding your path, perhaps pushing you in unexpected directions or even igniting a passion you didn't realize you had? Definitely something worth pondering.